Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami. Today happens to be a special day. Māgha Pujā. It is an auspicious day because it's a commemoration of a very unique event that took place early in the Sasana's history, the Buddha's dispensation, nearly 2,600 years ago. For the first 20 years or so of the Sangha's life, the life of the recluses or the ascetics, the community of monks, there were no precepts or vinaya per se. But on this day, the Buddha gave the Ovāda Pātimokkha, which is very simple guidance. And it's not something that is uniquely for monastics either. You can easily apply this into your own life, take it on. You don't have to be in robes, living the life of a recluse, for example. You don't have to. It has it is 3 verses only. Each verse has a few lines to it. It goes something like this. Patience is the best of ascetic practices. Nibbana is supreme. So declared the Buddhas of all time. Someone who has gone forth, who has taken the life, the holy life, as one's compass, cannot harm another. After all, such a person is no recluse who abuses and harms, molests others. The second verse goes something like this. Staying away from all kinds of evil and to cultivate and develop what is wholesome and to purify one's mind. This is the message of all Buddhas. And the third of the Ovāda Pātimokkha verses says, not to speak any kind of evil, not to do any harm, and to keep these rules, these methods of guiding oneself, one's life, according to. And to eat just enough, but not too much. And to seek seclusion, and not association, all the time. To find that space in your daily life where you can isolate yourself. Just go and seclude yourself with your thoughts, from society, from whatever it is that you like to associate with. You just sit there and to meditate, to find that oasis for yourself during the day in your life. That is the message of all Buddhas. Now, it is interesting as to how this day unfolded. You see, this was in the earlier days of Lord Buddha's teaching. The Buddha had at that time ordained himself, given the high ordination to 1,250 bhikkhus, monks. And what makes this an added special day is the fact that all these 1,250 bhikkhus were all Arahants. They had all reached the supreme experience of Nibbana. They were all liberated. They were all of the fourth stage awakened ones. In that sense, they were equal to Lord Buddha in their awakening, in their liberation. No more were they going to ever experience suffering of the mind, of the heart, of emotions. They were free from samsara, from the cycle of rebirth. On this day, full moon day, nearly 2,600 years ago, these bhikkhus, these arahants, who were advised by Lord Buddha to go ahead and teach in different parts of India, individually, sent away. To teach and declare and guide people according to the Dhamma, had no contact with each other. They didn't have any cell phones, no Wi-Fi, no telex, no telegram, nothing. Yet, on that day, no matter where they were in India, they were finding their way back to where the Buddha was staying. And silently they came together and formed the lines. And those lines converged and they all approached Lord Buddha and they surrounded him, their teacher. All Arahants, imagine that, on that full moon night. And they quietly sat in front of their teacher and listened. In silence. We can do a lot in silence. Not necessarily just silence of the mouth, but the silence I'm speaking about is that of the mind. The mind. The Buddha placed special emphasis on the mind. Mental action, he called it. Superior to the verbal action, and definitely superior to the physical, bodily action, because they all start from the mind. The words we speak come from a certain intentional mood of the mind. The actions we commit to, they usually are the manifestations of things that we have been chewing on in our mind for quite some time, often. The habitual tendencies that are the backbone of such actions. So the source is in the mind. Hence the emphasis. Now, one might ask the question, why give these instructions, which are very, in a sense, rudimentary, in a sense very like, these are Arahants after all, and they're way past beyond this. The Buddha was not giving it to them, for them, to apply, because it's impossible for an Arahant to make new action, new kamma, good or bad, let alone bad. They're beyond it. There is no ignorance. The last of the fetters, or sangyojana, in the mind, the obstacles, the binds in the mind, the last of which happens to be ignorance, avidya. It is only after one conquers that, overcomes it, destroys ignorance within oneself, can they become Arahants. So they were past that point. The Buddha was giving them the Ovāda Pātimokkha for the sake of posterity, so that future generations, not only of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, but of lay, male and female disciples, would incorporate these very important, valuable principles into one's life. And in many ways, one can see the entire teaching, the 84,000 teachings, as we call them, of Lord Buddha, his dispensation for over 45 years, can be seen in these 3 separate verses, where the 3 trainings are there of virtue, of mental cultivation, and wisdom, insight developing in the mind that is becoming more and more discerning, which separates this path of meditation, this path, the Buddha's path, from all others, including those that came to be introduced as Buddhist much later, that were in fact deviations and corruptions of the teachings. That's why we go back to the source. That's where we can still find the Dhamma. We can recognize the Dhamma there. And that's another reason why the flavor of the Lord Buddha's teaching is always the same. So Sila Samadhi Panya, we see it here in this Ovāda Pātimokkha teaching. And if we take anything from this, something that is relevant to us today, in the 21st century, is the emphasis placed on the mind. Mental action. Sometimes we think that the thoughts that we have no significance, have no relevancy, so long as they are not materialized. But that is not true. They can stay with us until the moment of death. And depending on how much emphasis we've placed on those intentions, maybe it's something like wanting something bad to happen to someone or some people. something like a curse. May these people or this person be, may this person experience such hardship, etc. Something like that. Nothing's being done, let's say, on the part of the person to manifest this. Maybe they've never even said those words out loud, just left in the form of a thought. But those thoughts are so powerful that they could stop a person from experiencing a smooth transition at the moment of death, meaning that transition of dying, that process becomes elongated, extended, and becomes more painful for the person going through that process. It is almost like tying a knot, a noose around our neck first. And if this person has truly harmed us, and as we're cursing them, for example, or saying bad, having bad thoughts towards them, it is the other side of this lasso, this rope that we tie, this noose that we tie on this person. Whether our bad, negative thoughts do come true and this person does experience some hardship because of this thought, which does occur, that is how powerful the thoughts we have can be. Whether this person experiences any hardship or not, one thing remains. We will definitely experience hardship. We will definitely experience the negative results of this kamma, the action. The thoughts we have are extremely important. And this is another reason why the Ovāda Pātimokkha rules, the first verse of which starts with having forbearance, having patience, tolerance, the capacity to look, see, and move beyond it. Learn from it, but move beyond it is so crucial. In fact, it is one of the hardest ascetic practices. What is asceticism after all? To become an ascetic means to be able to say goodbye to something, to drop something. When we're clipping our nails, or when we go to a barber shop and the person cuts our hair, do we grab the hair from the ground or the nail clippings and say, "Oh, you're a part of me, what am I going to do without you now?" No, it's funny, it's comical if we were to do such a thing. We just never think about it. It's done deal, it's finished. That's not part of me. It used to be a second ago. Once the scissors went through and they cut all that bundle, the strands of hair are not me anymore. Whether this person has done us harm or not, for me to dwell on mentally, to weave, to start to have ideas, ponderings of how I need to get even with this person, how they need to be punished, is like grilling oneself on the fire. Oneself, like a piece of meat. The other person might be totally clueless. Maybe that is their way of doing things. That's how but that is their kamma. Be wise enough to never cross paths with them again. or not to give them that much leeway, that much room for them to have such an easy access to you, to harm you again. That is wisdom. That's not patience. If you keep doing it again, if you keep putting yourself out there in harm's way. That's not what the Buddha was talking about when he talked about patience. Patience must have wisdom with it. Because that will develop into an understanding that moves us away from wanting to engage with further ill will, hatred, angry thoughts, angry speech, angry actions. Because you have a life to live. This is your life. So, I will say this much on this auspicious day. And may these words of Lord Buddha that I shared with you earlier, the 3 verses, may they continue to inspire us for many centuries to come, as we value our thoughts, our words, and our physical actions, choosing them wisely, and making our time here on this planet, in this body, count for something that is greater than us. Because that is what happens when a person sees the path and walks the path. May you all be well. May the Triple Gem bless you.